There are some things a parent never forgets. The sound of your child's first laugh. The moment they take their first steps. And the day someone dares to threaten them. That last one sticks in your soul like a scar that never fades. I never thought I'd see the day when someone would point a gun at my daughter. Especially not over something as ridiculous as a homeowner association membership. But then again, this wasn't an ordinary neighborhood. This was the Crestwood Hills HOA, a place where petty power turned people into monsters. It all started when my daughter Claire decided to buy her first home. She'd worked hard for it. 10 years on the force, promoted through every rank until she became the youngest sheriff in county history. Everyone in town respected her. She was fair, calm, and fearless, the kind of person who made you feel safe just by being around. When she told me she'd found a small property outside of town, nestled against a wooded ridge, I was proud. A place of her own, I said. She smiled that quiet smile of hers and said, "Yeah, Dad. Just me and the peace of the woods." But peace, as we've learned, doesn't last long when an HOA is nearby. The first time she mentioned them, it seemed harmless. A group of neighbors calling themselves the Crestwood Hills Preservation Society. They had a fancy logo, newsletters, and monthly meetings at the clubhouse. At first, they welcomed her politely, brought cookies, left flyers, talked about community standards. But when she told them she wasn't interested in joining, everything changed. The letters started showing up first. Polite at the beginning. "Dear homeowner, as a resident of Crestwood Hills, we encourage you to participate in our association." She ignored them. Then came the notices. "Non-membership fines may apply for properties within our maintenance zone." Fines. For not joining a club she never signed up for. She called me one evening to vent. "They're trying to strong-arm me into joining, Dad," she said. "I told them I'm outside their boundary line, but they keep insisting." "Let me guess," I said. "They've got a woman running the show. Short hair, bossy voice, probably calls herself president." Claire laughed. "Her name's Karen." Of course it was. Karen Owens, HOA president of Crestwood Hills. The kind of woman who wore oversized sunglasses and carried a clipboard like a weapon. Her entire identity was wrapped around controlling everyone around her. If you parked the wrong way, she fined you. If you painted your mailbox a slightly different shade, she complained. And if you didn't join her HOA, well, she made your life miserable. But she made one fatal mistake. She picked a fight with the wrong person. It started small. Claire found nails scattered across her driveway one morning. Then her trash cans were mysteriously misplaced every collection day. One night, someone spray-painted the word "join" across her mailbox. She filed reports, installed cameras, and caught one of Karen's volunteers trespassing on her property. She could have arrested them right then, but she didn't. She believed in giving people a chance to do the right thing. That was her first mistake. A week later, she attended one of the HOA meetings at the community hall, hoping to reason with them face to face. I went with her. The hall was packed, dozens of homeowners whispering like school kids before class. Karen stood at the front, behind a podium, smiling like a queen addressing her subjects. When we walked in, the murmurs stopped. You could feel the tension thick as smoke. "Ah," Karen said, adjusting her glasses. "The sheriff has decided to grace us with her presence. And her father too. How lovely." Claire kept her cool. "I'm here to clarify something. My property is outside your HOA's jurisdiction. I have no legal obligation to pay your fees or follow your rules." Karen smiled sweetly. "That's where you're mistaken. Our new community expansion plan includes your street. You're part of Crestwood Hills now." "No," Claire said firmly. "I checked with the county registrar myself. You don't have authority beyond Maple Ridge Road. My house is 3 lots past that." Karen's smile faltered. Just a flicker, but it was there. "Then perhaps we'll just need to file an amendment." "You can file whatever you want," Claire replied. "Doesn't make it legal." The crowd murmured again. Some looked uncomfortable. Others nodded quietly in agreement. That only made Karen angrier. "You can't just live here and ignore community rules," she said sharply. "Everyone contributes, everyone complies." Claire crossed her arms. "I contribute by paying my taxes. And I comply with the law. That's where my responsibility ends." Karen's face turned red. "You think your badge puts you above us?" "I think it reminds me who actually enforces the law," Claire said calmly. That shut her up, for the moment. We left after that. I thought maybe it was over, but I should have known better. People like Karen don't forget being embarrassed. They wait. They scheme. A few nights later, I got a call I'll never forget. It was around midnight. Rain was coming down hard, hammering against the roof. My phone buzzed, and when I saw it was Claire, I answered immediately. But it wasn't her voice I heard. It was static, then shouting, then a thud. "Claire!" I yelled. "Claire, are you there?" Nothing. I grabbed my keys and drove faster than I'd driven in years. Her cabin was 20 minutes away, down a winding back road. By the time I got there, the rain had turned to mist. The headlights swept across the gravel driveway, revealing her patrol car parked at an angle, the driver's door open. My heart dropped. I ran to the porch and froze. The door was wide open. The living room light flickered. I heard voices inside. Karen's voice. "You think you can defy me, Sheriff? You think you can move into my neighborhood and disrespect my authority?" Then I heard Claire. Calm, even, steady. "You're pointing a gun at an officer of the law. You don't want to do this." Karen's voice shook with fury. "You made a fool of me in front of everyone. You think that badge means something here? This is my community." I stepped quietly to the doorway, peering inside. Karen stood near the fireplace, hands trembling as she aimed a small revolver at my daughter. 2 other HOA board members hovered behind her, frozen with fear. Claire stood with her hands up, still as stone, her expression unreadable. "Karen," Claire said softly, "put the gun down." "Not until you sign the membership form," Karen snapped. "Right now. You're joining whether you like it or not." My blood boiled. I stepped forward and shouted, "Drop it." Karen jerked in surprise, swinging the gun toward me. But before she could even aim properly, Claire moved. Faster than I could blink, she reached for her belt, drew her sidearm, and in one clean motion, aimed it squarely at Karen's hand. Her voice turned sharp, commanding, the tone I'd only heard when she was in uniform. "Crestwood County Sheriff," she barked. "Drop your weapon." Karen froze. For the first time, she realized who she was dealing with, not just a homeowner but the law itself. The board members started whispering, terrified. One of them backed toward the door. Karen's lip trembled, her eyes darting between me and Claire. You wouldn't shoot," she stammered. "Try me," Claire said, voice steady as stone. The silence stretched. Rain drummed softly on the roof. Then finally Karen's hand went limp. The revolver clattered to the floor. Claire kicked it away, cuffed her without another word, and turned to the others. "You too," against the wall. They obeyed instantly. I stood there in stunned silence as my daughter read them their rights. It was surreal. The same woman this HOA tried to bully was now arresting its president for assault with a deadly weapon. When backup arrived, the entire neighborhood woke up to flashing lights. People gathered in their driveways, whispering as officers led Karen out in handcuffs. Some of them looked shocked. Others, quietly relieved. As they loaded her into the patrol car, she locked eyes with me. There was no arrogance left, no fake smile, just fear. Claire turned to me, her shoulders finally relaxing. "You okay, Dad?" I nodded slowly. "I should be asking you that." She exhaled, holstering her weapon. "I'm fine. Just tired of people thinking power means control." The next morning, news spread like wildfire. HOA president arrested for assaulting sheriff. The county didn't waste any time pressing charges. The board dissolved within days. Most of the residents sided with Claire, calling her a hero for standing up to the bullying that had ruled their lives for years. But that night, when we sat by her fireplace, I saw something in her eyes, a sadness. Not fear, not regret, but disappointment. She said quietly, "You try to build a community, and all it takes is one person with too much ego to ruin it." I nodded. "And one person with courage to fix it." She smiled faintly, staring at the badge on the table. "Funny thing," she said. She thought this meant I was above the law. But all it really means is that I answer to it. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air was still, heavy with the scent of wet pine. The kind of night that feels like an ending. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. People like Karen don't fade quietly. They regroup. They find new ways to lash out. And I had a feeling we hadn't seen the last of her. After that night, things in Crestwood Hills went quiet, or at least that's how it seemed on the surface. For a few days the air felt lighter. The neighbors who once peeked from behind curtains started waving when they passed Claire's driveway. Kids played outside again. The fear that used to hang over the community like a storm cloud had finally started to lift. Karen Owens was behind bars, awaiting trial on charges that could keep her there for a long time. Assault with a deadly weapon. Trespassing. Harassment. The list went on. For once, the system was working the way it should. But peace in Crestwood Hills never lasted long. 3 days after Karen's arrest, Claire woke up to a noise outside her window. It was just before dawn, the mist rolling off the trees, the air cold and heavy. She peeked through the blinds and froze. Someone was standing near her car, two figures in dark hoodies. They were spraying something across the side of her patrol vehicle. She grabbed her flashlight, threw on her jacket, and stepped outside quietly. The gravel crunched beneath her boots. "Hey!" she shouted. The figures bolted. One of them tripped over a garden bed, scrambled to their feet, and disappeared into the woods. Claire rushed over to her car and flicked on the light. Across the side of her cruiser, in thick red paint, were 3 words: Trader T.O. Crestwood. She sighed and rubbed her temples. It wasn't fear she felt, it was exhaustion. The kind that seeps deep into your bones. When she told me what happened, I felt that old familiar anger bubbling up again. "You think Karen's people did this?" I asked. Claire nodded slowly. "Yeah. Someone's trying to send a message. That's the thing about bullies, they never stand alone. There's always someone else who quietly benefits from their power. And when that power gets taken away, those people panic." Within a week, Claire started noticing strange things again. Anonymous calls with no one speaking on the other end. Her mail showing up ripped or burned. Even her trash bins were overturned. She reported each incident, logged everything, but deep down she knew what this was. Retaliation. Then one evening she found something that turned the whole situation on its head. She was at the station finishing her reports, when one of her deputies, Marcus, walked in holding a manila folder. "Sheriff," he said, "you're gonna want to see this." Inside were several photocopied documents, financial statements, transaction lists, and property tax records. They all tied back to Crestwood Hills HOA. "What am I looking at?" she asked. Marcus pointed at a column of figures. "They've been collecting fees from non-members for years. They call them maintenance contributions, but the money doesn't go to any community service. It's all funneled into a private account under Karen Owen's name, and 2 others. Claire leaned forward. "Who are the others?" Marcus flipped another page. "Vice President of the HOA, Alan Brooks. Treasurer, Stephanie Clark." Claire recognized both names instantly. They'd been standing behind Karen the night of the confrontation. "This is bigger than harassment," she said. "This is fraud." The next morning she drove to the county courthouse to request a full audit of the HOA's records. But before she could even get out of her car, someone had already beaten her there. Reporters. Word had spread. Somehow, a local journalist had gotten hold of the story: HOA president arrested after pointing gun at sheriff daughter. It was front-page news. Cameras flashed as she walked through the courthouse steps, reporters shouting questions. "Sheriff, did the HOA target you because of your position? Was this a personal vendetta or part of a bigger scheme? Is it true you plan to shut down Crestwood Hills entirely?" She kept her head down, answering nothing. The moment she walked inside, she saw the county commissioner waiting for her. "Sheriff," he said, his voice calm but firm, "we've received complaints from residents claiming you're targeting their association unfairly." Claire looked him dead in the eye. "Complaints from residents or from Karen's friends?" He didn't answer right away. "There are people on the board with influence. You might want to tread carefully." "Tread carefully?" she repeated. "A woman pointed a loaded gun at me in my own home. Her board members vandalized county property. And now I have proof of embezzlement. You think I'm backing off because they're influential?" The commissioner sighed. "I'm asking you to be smart about how you proceed." Claire smiled thinly. "Being smart is exactly what I plan to do." That night, she gathered her team at the sheriff's office: Marcus, Deputy Torres, and 2 new recruits. She laid out everything they had: the documents, the vandalism reports, the call logs. "We're building a case," she said. "This isn't just about the gun. It's about corruption. I want eyes on every HOA account, every transaction, every meeting they've had in the last 2 years." Torres looked up. "You think someone higher-up's involved?" "I think Karen had help," Claire replied. "And I'm going to find out who." While she focused on the investigation, I decided to stay at her cabin for a few days just to keep an eye on things. I couldn't rest easy knowing people were sneaking around at night. The second night I was there, I heard footsteps outside around 2 a.m. I grabbed the old shotgun from the closet and stepped quietly onto the porch. The forest was still except for the sound of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. Then I saw it, a flashlight beam flickering near the tool shed. "Who's out there?" I shouted. The light vanished. I took a few steps forward, gun raised. Then a voice came from the dark. "Don't shoot. Don't shoot." "It's me." It was Marcus. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing sneaking around here at night?" I demanded. He was breathing hard. Sheriff sent me to drop off the new security system. She said someone's been messing with the old one. Cameras were disabled. That made my stomach drop. Disabled how? Cut wires, he said. Clean cuts. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. By morning, Claire had the system replaced and connected directly to the station's network. No more blind spots. But the sabotage made one thing clear. This wasn't random. Someone wanted to scare her. Someone organized. 2 days later, Claire got a visit from someone she didn't expect. A tall man in a dark suit walked into her office, flashing a badge she didn't recognize. Federal Inspector Thomas Granger, he introduced himself. Department of Housing Oversight. We're investigating reports of financial misconduct in multiple HOAs across the state. Your case just crossed my desk. Claire studied him carefully. That's interesting timing. He nodded. We've been following Karen Owens' paper trail for months. She wasn't just embezzling from Crestwood Hills. She was part of a network of HOA officials funneling funds into offshore accounts. Property scams, fake maintenance projects, false tax write-offs. It's bigger than anyone thought. Claire leaned back, letting that sink in. So Karen wasn't the top. No, Granger said. She was just one of many. They decided to work together, county and federal agencies side by side. But that kind of collaboration draws attention fast. Word spreads in circles like that. And when people at the top start feeling threatened, they act desperate. The next few days turned into a blur of late-night calls, courthouse meetings, and anonymous threats. Claire's team received a message scratched onto the side of a patrol car. Back OFF or else. But she didn't back off. If anything, she doubled down. She got warrants, subpoenas, every legal document she needed to dig deeper. They raided HOA offices, seized financial ledgers, and uncovered dozens of fake contractors paid through shell companies. Each discovery led to another thread, and each thread led higher. Then one evening, while going through files at her desk, Claire found something chilling. A letter. Unopened. Addressed to her. No stamp, no return address. Just slid under her office door. She opened it slowly. Inside, in neat cursive handwriting, were just a few words. You don't know what you've started. She wasn't working alone. And the next visit won't end like last time. No signature. She showed it to me that night, laying it on the kitchen table. They're trying to rattle me, she said. Are they? I asked. Because it seems like they're scared. She smiled faintly. Maybe both. A week later, the trial began. Karen Owens, dressed in a dull gray suit, sat in the courtroom with her lawyers. Cameras lined the aisles. Residents filled the benches, whispering as Claire walked in. When she took the stand, she spoke clearly, calmly, every word measured. She described the night Karen entered her home with a gun, the harassment before that, the fraud uncovered after. Karen avoided eye contact the entire time. When the verdict was read, it was almost anticlimactic. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 15 years without parole. The crowd erupted in whispers, some gasping, others nodding in satisfaction. But even as the gavel fell, Claire noticed something. In the back row, a man in a dark suit, someone she didn't recognize, stood quietly and slipped out the side door before anyone else moved. That image burned into her mind. She knew this wasn't the end. Karen might have been locked away, but there were still others out there, people who wanted her silenced. As we drove home that night, I looked at her and said, "So what now?" She stared out the window at the empty road ahead, headlights cutting through the fog. "Now," she said, "we find out who's really pulling the strings." And just like that, the peace that had briefly returned to Crestwood Hills vanished again. Because when you uncover corruption that deep, it doesn't just go away, it hides, waiting for the right moment to strike back. And from the way Claire's phone started buzzing that night with blocked numbers and untraceable calls, I had a feeling that moment was coming sooner than we thought. When the gavel fell and Karen Owens was led away in handcuffs, everyone thought it was over. The local papers printed their headlines, the residents of Crestwood Hills started smiling again, and for a few brief weeks, it seemed like life might actually return to normal. But normal doesn't exist for long when power and money are involved. And for my daughter Claire, the sheriff who took down the most notorious HOA president in the county, peace was just the quiet before another storm. It started with a feeling. That's how these things always start. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, hearing what sounded like a car engine idling outside. She'd peek through the curtains, see nothing but mist curling through the trees, and tell herself she was imagining it. But deep down she knew better. Years of training had sharpened her instincts. Something was off. Then one morning she got to her office and noticed her computer had been accessed overnight. The screensaver was different. The chair was slightly pulled out. Her files were rearranged. Nothing was missing, at least not visibly, but when she checked the internal logs her stomach sank. Someone had copied her case files onto an external drive. No fingerprints. No signs of forced entry. Just digital footprints. Whoever it was knew exactly what they were looking for. The same day Marcus came into her office holding a sealed envelope. "This came for you, Sheriff," he said quietly. "No postage. Hand-delivered." Claire opened it and found a single sheet of paper. Printed in bold letters were the words, "You should have left it alone." She stared at it for a long moment, then folded it neatly and slipped it into an evidence bag. "Get this to forensics," she said. Marcus frowned. "You think Karen's behind it? Maybe through someone else." Claire shook her head. "Karen's in a maximum security facility. No phone, no email, no contact. Whoever's doing this is part of something bigger." That night she stopped by my place looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. I poured her a cup of coffee and asked, "You think someone higher up is trying to bury the case?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled out a flash drive from her pocket and set it on the table. "I made copies of everything before the system got breached. Financial records, court statements, communication logs. I think this goes beyond Crestwood Hills." I looked at her, uneasy. "How far beyond?" She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "There's a pattern." I cross-checked HOA filings from 4 nearby counties. Each has the same financial discrepancies, identical payments to shell companies listed under different names. All registered to the same address in Capital City. "Who's running it?" I asked. "That's what I'm going to find out." The next morning she drove out to Capital City with Marcus, following the paper trail. The address on the filings led them to a nondescript office building on the edge of downtown. No signs, no company name, just a plaque that read Harrison Management Group. When she walked inside she noticed how quiet it was. The receptionist looked startled to see a uniformed sheriff walk in. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, forcing a polite smile. "Sheriff Claire Dalton," Claire said, flashing her badge. "I need to speak with whoever handles your HOA accounts." The woman hesitated. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Claire said. "But I think you'll want to make one." A few minutes later, a man stepped out of a glass office. Tall, silver hair, tailored suit, the kind of person who oozed confidence that came from never being told no. He extended his hand. "Sheriff Dalton," he said smoothly. "I'm Richard Harrison. I understand you have questions." She didn't shake his hand. "Your firm manages multiple HOAs across this state. I've found evidence that suggests funds are being misused, money being funneled through shell companies connected to your address." He smiled faintly. "I'm afraid you must be mistaken. We simply provide administrative services. What individual boards do with their funds isn't our responsibility." Claire studied him. "Funny. Because 3 of those boards have members who directly wired money into your personal trust account." His expression didn't change, but the air in the room did. "Sheriff," he said quietly, "you're overstepping." "Or maybe," she said, "I'm finally stepping in where no one else would." He leaned closer. "You think taking down one small-town HOA president makes you some kind of hero? You have no idea how deep this goes." "I don't need to," she replied. "I just need to follow the law." Harrison chuckled softly and stepped back. "Well then, I suppose I'll be seeing you again soon." As she and Marcus left the building, Marcus muttered, "That guy's too calm. It's like he knows something." Claire nodded. "He does. And that's what makes him dangerous." 2 nights later, someone broke into her cabin. They didn't steal anything. They didn't vandalize. They just left a message, written across her kitchen wall in black marker. "Turn back before it's too late." That same night, the power went out across the ridge for hours. When it came back, her cameras were offline again. The next morning, I found her sitting on the porch, arms crossed, staring at the lake. "You're not backing off, are you?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not a chance." She called Granger, the federal inspector who'd helped her before, and told him everything. He agreed to meet her at a diner halfway between the county line and the city. But when she got there, he never showed. His phone went straight to voicemail. Hours later, they found his car parked on the side of the highway, empty. No signs of struggle. Just gone. That's when Claire realized just how far this conspiracy went. Granger wasn't just missing, he'd been erased. His office cleared out, files deleted, his name removed from internal databases. It was like he never existed. For most people that would have been the breaking point. For Claire it was the spark that lit the fuse. She called Marcus and Torres, told them to prepare search warrants for Harrison Management Group. But before she could file them, she received a call from the county commissioner, the same man who'd warned her to tread carefully. "Sheriff," he said, his voice low, "I need to advise you to stop pursuing this." "You're advising me to ignore evidence of organized fraud?" she asked. "I'm advising you," he said sharply, "to protect your career. These people aren't like Karen Owens. They have reach. They can bury you, and anyone who helps you." She hung up without replying. By the next morning she had already assembled her team. They coordinated with 2 federal agents still sympathetic to Granger's cause and planned a raid on Harrison's office. When they got there, the building was empty. Desks cleared, computers wiped, lights off. The only thing left was a single folder sitting on the conference table. Inside was a photograph. Karen Owens, smiling, standing beside Richard Harrison. On the back, a handwritten note: "You didn't really think she worked alone, did you?" Claire felt her chest tighten. "He was using her," she whispered. "Karen was just a pawn." Marcus frowned. "So where does this end?" She looked out the window at the city skyline. "It doesn't, not until we drag every last one of them into the light." That night, she got another message, this time to her personal phone. An unknown number sent a video. It showed her standing outside the courthouse from a few days earlier, unaware she was being filmed. The camera followed her all the way to her car. The message underneath read, "We see you." I remember the moment she showed it to me. Her hands didn't even shake. She was beyond fear now. She was angry. "I'm done reacting," she said. "It's time they learn what happens when you threaten a sheriff." Over the next week, she worked around the clock, pulling in favors from every contact she'd ever made. Former officers, cyber analysts, retired vets, people she could trust. Together, they pieced together the network Harrison had built. It stretched across 5 states. Dozens of HOAs, hundreds of fake companies, millions of dollars siphoned from unsuspecting homeowners. The money funded lobbying groups, private security firms, even politicians. Claire gathered everything into a single dossier. She called it the Crestwood File. Then she did something unexpected. She leaked it. Not to the press. Not to her superiors. To the people. Every homeowner on every HOA mailing list across the state received an anonymous email containing the full file. Bank records, wire transfers, photographs, everything. By morning it was viral. News anchors were reporting it live. State officials were scrambling to respond. Harrison's name was everywhere. He tried to deny it at first, claiming his company was hacked. But the evidence was too strong. Within days, federal investigators raided his mansion. Claire didn't go near the scene. She didn't need to. She just stood on her porch, watching the sun rise over the trees, the lake shimmering beneath it. I joined her with 2 mugs of coffee. "It's over," I said quietly. She shook her head. "Not yet. There'll be others. There always are." She was right. But for that moment, the weight on her shoulders seemed lighter. The community she'd fought for was free again. People from Crestwood Hills started reaching out, thanking her for standing up to the corruption they'd been too afraid to challenge. One evening as we sat by the fire, she said something I'll never forget. "You know, Dad, when Karen pointed that gun at me, I wasn't scared of dying. I was scared of what fear makes people do. It turns neighbors into enemies. It makes good people look away. That's why I can't stop. Because every time someone stands up, it reminds the rest that they can too." I nodded slowly. "And if it ever happens again?" She smiled faintly. "Then they'll learn the same lesson Karen did." Weeks later, the state announced the largest investigation into HOA fraud in history. Arrests were made across multiple counties. Harrison was charged with racketeering and conspiracy. The Crestwood Hills HOA was officially dissolved. The neighborhood finally belonged to its residents again. One by one, the old "no trespassing" and "authorized members only" signs came down. The clubhouse became a community center for everyone. The same people who once hid behind Karen's rules were now planting gardens and organizing barbecues. And as for Claire, she stayed in that same cabin by the same lake. Her patrol car parked beside the porch, the badge gleaming in the light. Sometimes, when I visit, I catch her standing at the edge of the water, looking out over the still surface. Watching. Waiting. Because she knows peace isn't permanent. But neither is corruption. And if it ever dares to rise again in Crestwood Hills, she'll be ready, just like before. That's who she is. The sheriff who doesn't just protect the law. She is the law. And this time, everyone in Crestwood Hills knows exactly whose side justice stands on. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Karma's just getting started.